Beyond the illusion of inclusion, why representation without power fails us all. 70% of Black consumers won't even consider a product if they don't see themselves represented. But what happens when that representation is merely decorative? When the faces are diverse, but the decision makers remain homogeneous? When the appearance of inclusion masks the reality of exclusion? I recently had the profound honor of interviewing Kacee Green, a visionary leader who's not just participating in conversations about representation in marketing and leadership. She's fundamentally transforming them. Her revolutionary insights have helped countless organizations move beyond performative diversity to create spaces of genuine equity and influence. Through her work, she has illuminated the path forward for brands struggling to connect authentically with diverse audiences. And her impact on reshaping corporate America's approach to inclusion cannot be overstated. What makes Casey's perspective so powerful is her unflinching commitment to truth. She cuts through the corporate jargon and performative allyship to reveal a profound reality that many organizations are reluctant to confront. Representation without decision making power is merely decoration. This isn't just another diversity talk. This is about the fundamental difference between being invited to dinner and helping decide what's on the menu. It's about the chasm between being seen and being heard. And it's about why that gap costs companies billions while continuing to marginalize the very communities they claim to champion. The numbers tell a devastating story. Nearly 70% of Black consumers reject brands where they don't see themselves represented, yet representation alone isn't driving meaningful change. Why? Because authentic inclusion requires more than visibility, it demands authority, respect, and the power to shape outcomes. As Kacee Green powerfully articulated, representation without decision making power is decoration. Marketing without cultural understanding is noise, and leadership without equity is performance. Her words strip away the comfortable illusions that allow organizations to celebrate diversity statistics while maintaining systems that concentrate power in homogeneous hands. Let's be crystal clear about something. This isn't just a moral imperative, though it certainly is that. It's also a business imperative with measurable consequences. Companies that integrate authentic representation see a 16% increase in long term sales. That's not coincidental. It reflects the difference between performative inclusion and genuine cultural reverence. Consider what happened with Target during Pride Month in 2023. The retail giant attempted to create LGBTQ plus inclusive advertising and merchandise, positioning themselves as allies to the community. But when faced with backlash from a vocal minority, they didn't stand firm in their commitment. Instead, they retreated, pulling merchandise and altering their marketing strategy. The consequences were swift and severe. Target alienated both the LGBTQ plus community they initially sought to support and the critics they attempted to appease. The company lost approximately $14 billion in market value within days. This wasn't just a PR disaster, it was a failure of conviction, a painful demonstration of what happens when representation isn't backed by genuine commitment. Or take Bud Light's partnership with a transgender influencer. The brand attempted to reach diverse consumer communities, but lacked a coherent strategy behind the collaboration. When criticism mounted, they panicked and retreated, damaging relationships with multiple consumer groups by demonstrating they were merely dabbling in inclusivity rather than making a genuine commitment. These aren't isolated incidents, they're symptoms of a deeper problem. Organizations that want the appearance of diversity without doing the hard work of creating truly inclusive cultures where diverse voices have actual power. As Sister Maya Angelou reminded us, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. These companies showed us exactly who they were. Organizations willing to use marginalized communities for marketing purposes, but unwilling to stand beside them when it became uncomfortable. The pharmaceutical industry offers another troubling example of this disconnect. Black representation at leadership levels has struggled, particularly following the 2023 decision to end affirmative action and amid federal funding cuts. Black biotech entrepreneurs consistently struggle to secure adequate funding compared to their white counterparts, limiting their ability to gain the experience necessary for leadership positions. The consequences extend far beyond corporate diversity metrics. They affect real lives in Black communities. Black men are 70 to 110% more likely to develop prostate cancer than their white counterparts, yet marketing for life-saving drugs often fails to reach these vulnerable populations because of disconnects between pharmaceutical companies and the communities they serve. This is what happens when representation exists without power, when we have diversity without inclusion, visibility without voice, presence without influence. So, what would happen if more organizations move beyond superficial representation to genuine power sharing and cultural understanding? We would see transformative changes across industries. Brands would stop experiencing the whiplash of failed diversity initiatives like Target and Bud Light. We would see more authentic marketing that resonates with Black consumers who currently reject products where they don't see themselves represented. In leadership, we would address the disconnect that currently exists in industries like pharmaceuticals, where life saving drugs fail to reach the populations who need them most because marketing lacks cultural understanding. Black biotech entrepreneurs would receive equitable funding, allowing them to develop solutions for health disparities that disproportionately affect their communities. Most importantly, we would create spaces where Black professionals can lead with both brilliance and humanity, where they aren't forced to be twice as prepared with half the resources, where their ideas aren't questioned more than praised, and where they can disagree without being labeled difficult. As Kacee Green emphasized throughout our conversation, Black leaders aren't just fighting for a seat at the table, they're fighting to reshape the table itself while carrying the burden of excellence without adequate support. This is the reality that the Pink Parachute Diaries podcast confronts head on, a world where talented Black women are handed pink slips while underperforming men are rewarded with golden parachutes. It's a world where representation might get you in the door, but power remains elusive. The question isn't whether diversity matters, the data clearly shows it does. The question is whether organizations are willing to go beyond tokenism to create environments where diverse leaders have genuine authority to shape strategy, allocate resources, and drive change. As Audre Lorde powerfully stated, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. We cannot expect systems designed to concentrate power to voluntarily distribute it. That requires intentional, sustained effort and a willingness to be uncomfortable. For Black professionals navigating these spaces, Kacee's insights offer both validation and a roadmap. The challenges you face aren't imaginary, they're structural. The extra scrutiny, the higher standards, the constant pressure to represent your entire community. These are real burdens that exact a toll. But there's also power in naming these dynamics, in refusing to internalize them, and in building networks of support that sustain you through the journey. As the African proverb reminds us, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. For allies with decision making authority, the path forward is equally clear. It's not enough to invite diverse voices to the table. You must ensure they have the power to shape the agenda, influence decisions, and hold the organization accountable when it falls short. This means asking harder questions. Who has decision making power? Who controls the budget? Whose cultural expertise is valued in strategy sessions? It means recognizing that discomfort is part of growth and that meaningful change rarely happens without disruption. The data is unequivocal. Organizations with diverse leadership outperform their homogeneous counterparts. Brands that authentically engage diverse communities build stronger, more loyal customer bases. Marketing that reflects genuine cultural understanding resonates more deeply and drives stronger results. Yet, too many organizations continue to settle for the appearance of diversity without the substance of inclusion. They want the business benefits without doing the hard work of creating truly equitable cultures. I stand before you today not just as a speaker, but as someone who has witnessed firsthand the transformative power of genuine inclusion and the devastating consequences of its absence. I've seen organizations flourish when they embrace diversity at every level of decision making, and I've watched them flounder when they reduce inclusion to a marketing strategy. The time for half measures is over. The cost is too high, not just in dollars and market share, but in human potential squander and voices silenced. Today, I challenge you to become architects of change within your spheres of influence. If you have power, share it. If you have privilege, leverage it to create access for others. If you have a platform, amplify voices that have been systematically marginalized. Demand more than representation, demand transformation, insist on equity in decision making, in resource allocation, in whose expertise is valued. Recognize that discomfort is not the enemy of progress, it's often the precursor to breakthrough. In the words of Shirley Chisholm, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. But today, we must go further. We must build new tables where power is distributed equitably and diverse voices don't just influence the conversation, but set the agenda. The future belongs to organizations that understand that true inclusion isn't just about who's in the room, it's about who has the power to make decisions that matter. It belongs to leaders who recognize that diversity isn't a checkbox to tick, but a strategic advantage to leverage. Will you be among them? Will you have the courage to move beyond the illusion of inclusion to create spaces of genuine equity and influence? The choice is yours. The time is now, and the world is watching.